Folks, hey, welcome back to the show. We've got Michael Busler on the line. He is a professor of economics from Stockton University in New Jersey. You've seen his stuff published, Newsmax, LifeSet, townhall.com. Dr. Busler, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Paul. How are you? It's my pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. It's always great to have you. I wanted to have you on to talk a little bit more about this minimum wage topic. We've got polls showing that Americans are concerned about the impact the increased minimum wage will have on the economy. I know there's a caveat, like at first they support it, but then they want, if you give them the right information about the negative things that it could do, then they're not so sure. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so historically, every time they suggested raising the minimum wage, the American public overwhelmingly supported it. Now, usually the increases in the minimum wage were 80 cents an hour, $1 an hour, and Americans, because they're compassionate, tended to support that. This time, the House of Representatives wants to raise the minimum wage more than double it, from the current $7.25 an hour up to $15 an hour, and they're going to take 5 or 6 years to get there. Now, with that size of a increase in the minimum wage, it's going to cause far more harm than any benefit. So supporters, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats in Congress, would say, well, look, if you raise the minimum wage, it will lift people out of poverty. People who are working hard 40 hours a week deserve what Bernie Sanders refers to as a living wage, and $15 an hour is a minimum. They deserve it. We should pay them. So that's their argument. Now, what you're referring to is some information that came out talking about what the longer-term effects of the minimum wage would be. The Congressional Budget Office estimated that 1.3 million people would be lifted out of poverty. The problem is, when you raise wages like that and the workers aren't really doing anything more for it, when wages end up going up that much, it ends up reducing the number of jobs available. Now, some economists will say that's not true, but if you look at reality, I think you'll agree it is true. $15 an hour turns out to be about $31,000 a year, plus with the Social Security that the company has to pay and some other costs, turns out to be about $35,000 a year to hire somebody who has absolutely no skills. A minimum wage worker is somebody who doesn't really know how to do anything. They don't have any skills. Yeah. So how many jobs will be available for people with no skills that the employer has to pay $35,000 a year to?
I think that's why, with the fast food situation, exactly. the skill there is to hand a bag of food out of a window. And that's not a specialized skill. That's something we can all do. And that's why these fast food restaurants are going to start putting they already are. They're putting automation in their stores.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the company, the fast food chain says, look, I've got 5 people in the front here. 3 of them take orders and 2 of them handle payment. Well, as long as I'm paying them $7, $8, $9 an hour, it makes sense for me to do that. There is an alternative. Economists would say you're going to replace labor with capital. So I could bring in some of those automated machines. So they're touch screens to take the order and a credit card as the touchscreen to make a payment. Well, that's fairly expensive, and I haven't done it so far. However, if I have to pay these 5 people I have instead of the $15,000, $16,000, $18,000 a year I pay them, if I now have to pay them over $30,000 a year, and I've got 5 of them there, it simply isn't going to be profitable for me. And now it's cheaper to get the touch screens in there and take the place of labor. So automation is happening, artificial intelligence is happening, but the faster you push up the minimum wage, the more likely you are to get automation coming in, and you'll see a severe reduction in the number of jobs available. Yeah. Look, the unemployment rate is down under 4%, but if you look at the unemployment rate for teenagers, which has historically been in the 18-20%, it still is at 13%. 6%. Part of the reason for that is you set a wage above what the market would pay somebody, and when that happens, you end up with unemployment.
Also, can you address the fact that some of these people on the left that want this higher minimum wage, most of them, their philosophy is also just a bigger government in general, and they're going to get they're going to get more tax dollars when they artificially increase the minimum wage. Then they're going to get higher tax revenues to government, right?
Yeah, if you look at the big picture here, the U.S. went from being a new country to the number one economy in the world, the largest, most prosperous economy in the world in about 150 years. Other countries were hundreds, in some cases thousands of years older. Well, how did that happen? I believe the reason was four things. One, our system encouraged individual freedom. You were free to pursue what you wanted to do. Secondly, we encouraged individual responsibility. People took care of themselves. Thirdly, we had low rates of taxation. So when you earned income, you got to keep most of it. That was plenty of incentive. And fourthly, we had a limited role for government. The government provided the services that they do, defense of the country, a legal system, et cetera, and really didn't get involved much in business. So individual freedom, individual responsibility, low rates of taxation, and a limited role for government made our economy go from zero to the largest in a short period of time. All of these social programs that the Democrats are putting forth, free college tuition, pay off your student loans, free health care for everybody, we're going to raise the minimum wage, all of those programs, which they believe are geared to cure perceived social injustices, are all opposite to those four principles. The government takes over industries, you're going to lose individual freedom. The government provides services for you, you're going to lose individual responsibility. In order for the government to pay for this, they're going to have to raise taxes not just on the wealthy, but on everybody, so we'll have a higher rate of taxation. And now we have a large role for government. So it's exactly opposite to what made the country great.
I mean, I certainly agree with you. I also know that, this is, the minimum wage, now that you're paying people, mandated a higher wage, you now are getting more tax dollars from them. You now are, the amount of money going to the government is now increasing. And I think that's another reason why they love the minimum wage and increasing it to $15 an hour. Here in Arkansas, we're on there was a ballot initiative that got put forward to the people, and lo and behold, they voted for an increase in the minimum wage, and we're going to be looking in a couple of years. It's a phase-in, but an $11 minimum wage in a state like Arkansas that's got a low cost of living. This is going to cripple small businesses in our state. Not to mention what may be considered nationally.
Yeah, I live in New Jersey, along the New Jersey shore. Here, they voted to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. It goes up about roughly $1 an hour over the next 5 or 6 years. It's 8-something now. I talk to small business people, especially in these resorts town. They don't know how they're going to stay in business. They can't possibly pay people $15 an hour. I mean, these are college kids that work in the summer. They're glad to have a job down at the shore. If they have to pay them $15 an hour, they can't possibly stay in business. Where do the Democrats think that money is coming from? So if the labor costs are going up, there's only two choices. Either business has got to cover it and reduce their profit, and of course if the profit gets reduced enough, there's no reason to be in business and people just go out of business. So business will try to absorb it, or you raise prices to consumers, and there's a limit to how much how much you can raise prices. So any way you look at it, it's either going to hurt business or it's going to hurt consumers. It's going to cause unemployment for a large number of workers. The CBO says you're likely to lose more jobs than the number of people that benefit. So where does it help somebody? There's only 1.3 million people, according to CBO, will be helped. But look at all the other people that you're harming as a result of this. My view is you're far better to let the market determine what a fair wage would be rather than have one
Yes.
artificially set by the government.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with you there. We're talking with Dr. Michael Busler, public policy analyst, professor of economics at Stockton University, in the high-tax state of New Jersey. Dr. Busler, on the $15 minimum, on the $15 minimum wage, did you see where the Bernie Sanders campaign was receiving criticism for not paying $15 because he was overworking his employees and they were really actually making more like 11 or 12? So now he is, in order to meet that threshold, in order to check that box, he's now limiting the number of hours that his campaign staffers can work so that he can say, I am paying them $15 an hour.
And that's exactly how business people would react to this. Their costs have to be held in line, or they won't have profitability, and if they don't have profitability, they're not going to be there anymore. So to hold the cost in line, if they have to increase wages up to $15 an hour, they're either going to reduce the number of people they have, or have the people that are there work fewer hours. And an employer would reason, look, I was paying you $10 an hour. Now I'm paying you $15 an hour. Shouldn't I expect you to produce a little bit more if I'm paying you that much more? So they reason the same thing as Bernie Sanders did, and the higher wage results in less hours for workers that are there or fewer jobs available.
Dr. Busler, I'd love to get your thoughts on the debt and this debt ceiling, compromise that we're hearing about in the news this morning. No one really wants to talk about national debt anymore. Do you still think it's a serious problem?
It is a huge problem, and it's going to get even more serious. Here's the real problem why it's not being addressed. The public debt is up to $22 trillion. That's all the money, the deficits we've had over time that we had to finance by selling bonds. It adds to the public debt. The interest on the public debt alone is turning out to be about 13 or 14% of the government budget, so it's turning out to be a big number. We've got to get the budget as close to balanced as possible. Now, why can't we do that? The federal government will spend $4.4 trillion this year. Of that total, a little over 60%, $2.7 trillion, is for entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. You add in the interest on the debt, which also has to be paid, and now you're up over 70% of the budget. Government spending is very difficult to do anything about. If you say, any politician says, look, to get government spending down, we're going to have to reduce spending in Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid, politically it's a disaster. Even if you even mention it, it has very negative political connotations. Eventually, somebody's going to have to take a look at this and say, look, these entitlement programs, we've got to get them under control. They're bankrupting the country. The last thing we need to do is to add more entitlement programs like free college and paying off college debt. We don't need any more, and indeed, we have to rein these in. I've looked at this. There's no good solution to this, which is why everybody's staying away from it. So if you can't find a good solution, the next best thing to do is to find a solution that's the least bad. And I think the only way out of this is we're going to have to significantly raise the retirement age. Social Security is already going up to 67. We're going to have to raise both Medicare and Social Security up to at least 70, and probably a little bit longer. Part of the reason, too, is that people are living a lot longer now. When Social Security was put in 1935, you retired at 65. The average life expectancy was 67. So you only lived and collected a couple of years. Well, that made sense. Now, people are living well into their 80s, into their 90s, and every day you see people that are living up over 100 now. Well, there's no way Social Security, you can start collecting Social Security and Medicare at 67 or 65 and expect that to cover you for the next 30, 35 years. It just isn't going to happen. There's not enough money to do that. When Social Security was started, there were 7 people, roughly, working for every one collecting. There are now 3 people working for every one collecting, and as the baby boomers continue to retire, it'll get even worse, less than 3 people. It is not a sustainable system. At some point, somebody's going to have to face it.
So I'm 35, Dr. Busler, and I'm just wondering, do you think, I mean, I'm paying Social Security taxes.
Yeah.
Am I going to see any of that money?
You know, I tell my students, and I've been telling them for years, I said, if I was you, I wouldn't count on anything from Social Security. So plan your own retirement, set up your own retirement account. If I'm wrong, and I hope I am, and there is money for you from Social Security when you retire, then you'll just be in a better position because you'll have to put away money yourself plus Social Security. If it turns out I'm right and Social Security can't cover it, then you don't have anything to worry about because you planned for your own retirement.
There you go. Don't. It's, you know, the government dependency. When the government fails you, you know, there are consequences for it. Dr. Michael Busler, we always appreciate you coming on the program. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Paul. It was my pleasure.
All righty. Yes, sir. Mine too.